October 29th. This is the Hermetic Hour. I'm your host, Poke Runyon. And tonight we present a discussion on the fourth sphere of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, Chesed, or Gedula, the sphere attributed to Jupiter, the king of the planets, and the physical locus of the third eye. We consider Chesed the home of Dagon, Capricorn, the amphibian god of the ancient Canaanites, who is related to Poseidon, the patron deity of ancient Atlantis, which we also place in the Jovian sphere. Now, once again, our texts will be Dion Fortune, Gareth Knight, Michael Greer, and our own Hermetic Yoga, Volume 1. So, if you want to visit the sphere of prosperity, and we could all use some of that, join us for an eye-opener, the third eye, that is. And those of you who are here in Southern California, don't forget our Halloween party this Saturday night with the infamous Moat Mass honoring the dead. So, as some of you may have gathered already by listening to these particular shows that we've been running on the spheres, you may have gathered that Dion Fortune's Mystical Kabbalah is the first of the books on the Hermetic Kabbalah back, and this came out back in the 1920s. And actually, Basil Wilby's Kabbalistic Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism draws very, very much on Dion Fortune's Mystical Kabbalah. And I think Michael Greer's book, The Paths of Wisdom, I think he also draws a lot on Dion Fortune, too. So, with that in mind, Dion Fortune, I think, has her chapter on Chesed is probably the best of the three, and the original from which the rest of them all draw. So let's take a look at the top of her chapter on the Mystical Kabbalah on Chesed. The title, Chesed, Mercy. The Hebrew spelling, Cheth Semek Galeth. The magical image is a mighty crowned and throned king. The situation on the tree, in the center of the pillar of mercy, the Yetziratic text. The fourth path is called the cohesive or receptive intelligence because it contains all the holy powers, and from it emanate all the spiritual virtues with the most exalted essences. They emanate one from another by virtue of the primordial emanations, the highest crown, from the highest crown, Kether. The titles given to Chesed are Gedula, love and majesty. The god name is El, or A-L. The archangel is Zadkiel. The order of the angels is the Chasmolim, the brilliant ones. The mundane chakra is Zedek, Jupiter. And the spiritual experience is a vision of love. The virtue is obedience. The vice is bigotry, hypocrisy, gluttony, tyranny. The correspondence in the microcosm is the left arm, or at least according to this aspect. Symbols, the solid figure, the tetrahedron, the pyramid, the equal arm cross, the orb, the wand, the scepter, and the crook, shepherd's crook. Tarot cards, the four fours, the four of wands, which is just perfected work, the four of cups, pleasure, the four of swords, rest from strife, and the four of pentacles, earthly power. The color in Absolute is deep violet, in Bria it's blue, and in Zera it's deep purple, and in Ashia, deep azure flecked yellow. Now, of course, we said the color in Bria is blue. Now, you recall that in the Minutum Mundum that the Golden Dawn created, the Minutum Mundum is a tree of life drawing with the spheres all in the Briatic scale, and the paths all in the Shia scale. That's the top scale, and Bria is the second scale. Now, the reason why they did that is because the paths are active and the spheres are passive. But we use that Minutum Mundum color scheme of the Tree of Life in all our correspondences. And even though we have some some things in CHSOTA that we don't agree with the Golden Dawn on, but for the most part we do, and they did, of course, the best modern synthesis of the practical Hermetic Kabbalah. Now, to read a little bit of Dion Fortune here after the list of correspondences, let's begin here. Between the three supernals and the next pair of balancing Sephirot upon the tree, there is a great gulf called by mystics the abyss. And the next six Sephirot, Chesed, Geburah, Tifereth, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, constitute what the Kabbalists call microprosopis, the lesser countenance of Adam Kadmon, the king. The queen, the bride of the king, is Malkuth and the physical plane. We have then the father, Kether, the king, and the bride, and Kether is the king and Malkuth is the bride. And in this configuration of the tree, there is profound symbolism and great practical importance in both philosophy and magic. The abyss, the gulf fixed between macroprosopis and microprosopis, marks the demarcation in the nature of being, in the type of existence prevailing upon the two levels. It's in the abyss that Da'ath, the invisible Sephirot, has its station, and it might aptly be named the Sephirah of becoming. It is also called understanding, which might be further interpreted as perception, apprehension, and consciousness. Now, what she says here is very important, especially with us, because we reconstitute Da'ath in the tree after the fall. The tree the tree that we have, based upon Athanasius Kircher's drawing, the tree that we use for the Minutum Mundum is the tree before the tree after the fall, and the tree with Da'ath manifested is the tree before the fall, and the idea, of course, in mastering the tree as those who climb the tree and do that are aware. The idea is to restore the tree to its original state before the fall. And before the fall, Da'ath was in that position, right on the lightning flash, in that position, right in the abyss. And once you restore the tree, what ends up happening is that Da'ath becomes Saturn. Da'ath it takes on the attribute of Saturn, and it becomes the beginning of the physical universe. So this statement here by Dion Fortune is very, very apropos. The abyss that Da'ath, the invisible Sephirot, has its station, and it might aptly be named the Sephirah of becoming. It is also called understanding, which might be further interpreted as perception, apprehension, and consciousness. And of course, we place in the tree before the fall, which we restore, we place Da'ath right in the center of the skull, in the microcosm. And in the chakra position, we place it right in the center of the skull, and we use the whole skull as the cube of space, and we start the physical universe right smack. As you know from studying the cube of space, you know that that's where what the cube of space does is it places the whole tree in a cube format. The corners, the lines, and all the spheres are all in there, and all the paths are in there. And right smack in the center is Saturn, and that's where the physical universe starts. Okay, now, these two types, back to Dion Fortune, these two types of existence Macroprosopis and microprosopis serve to indicate the potential and the actual manifestation, as our finite minds can conceive it. It begins with microprosopis, and the first aspect of microprosopis to come into being is Chesed, the fourth Sephira, situated immediately below Chokmah, the Father, and the pillar of mercy, of which it is the central Sephira. It is balanced across the tree by Geburah, severity, and this pair, Geburah and Gedula, form the power and the glory and of the final invocation of the Lord's Prayer, the kingdom. The kingdom being, of course, Malkuth, and is the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And, of course, that, as you know, is the formula of the pentagram ritual. Now, just skip over a little bit. Chesed, being the first Sephira of microprosopis, or the manifested universe, represents the formation of the archetypal idea, the correction, the concretion of the abstract. Now, what she's saying here is that, and she goes into some length on this, and I'll try to summarize it. But the idea being here that Chesed is where all the powers of the supernals are concentrated, and everything emanates down from Chesed. And this is why Chesed is considered the king, and this is why the image of Chesed is the king on his throne, and this is why Chesed is attributed to El, which simply means God, A-L, Aleph Lamed. Now, interestingly enough, here's John Michael Greer goes into a very interesting detail on Aleph Lamed, and he points out that Aleph, of course, represents the first letter of the alphabet, and it represents the ox, or represents the bull, and I think we all know that. You take an Aleph, and it's kind of a V. It's kind of a sidewise V with a stroke through it. And if you turn it up and point it with the point sticking down, it looks very much like a bull, with the two horns sticking up and the ears coming out on the sides, and very much like a bull's head. Do you remember in the Ten Commandments, the first commandment is that place no other God before me. Now, Yahweh in those days, if Yahweh did actually dictate the commandments, I'm not sure he did, but at least he may have dictated the ones to Moses. But Yahweh in those days, Yahweh did not consider himself the one and only God. It was only later that he adopted that idea. So he was still. So he was saying, place no other God before me. Now this also, of course, applies to El originally, Yahweh's father. It applies to El because El was called Bull El back in the days of the Canaanites. And the other aspect of this is the second letter of El is Lamed. And Lamed is right in the middle of the alphabet. So Aleph is in the beginning of the alphabet, and Lamed is in the middle. And what does Lamed mean? It means the ox goad. So we have El the bull in the beginning of the alphabet, and then we have Lamed the ox goad driving the force driving the El in the middle of the alphabet. And the two together, by the way, that's also the wielder of the ox goad is the Canaanite who became one of the first kings of Israel, Shamgar, and he killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad, and so the ox goad has since become quite a holy symbol, a symbol of power and rulership. Now, I'd like to read I'd like to read our Hermética yoga book here, what we have on Chesed, and so we discuss some of the correspondences that we make on this. Chesed, the fourth sphere, Jupiter, mercy, Archangel Zadkiel. Chesed's traditional image is a crowned king, which derives from its attribution to Jupiter, the largest of the planets. And because of this, mercy and prosperity are both magical and astrological qualities. We also attribute Chesed to the lost kingdom of Atlantis, ruled by Poseidon, whom we equate with the Phoenician god Dagon, and also the Sumerian amphibious teacher Oannes. Is fixed in the stars as Capricorn, the fish goat, which is also called the gate of the gods. If you recall, the Capricorn is the gate of the gods, and Cancer is the gate of men. And the souls come in through Cancer, and then they go out through Capricorn. Now, we theorize that these amphibious aliens were extraterrestrial and have reincarnated among us, so that we communicate with their presence in our Chesed psychic center chakra. Dagon lives for us in a tank in the great temple of Poseidon. We can visit him in our own yoga meditations or in our path workings. And he has shown us a mudra for opening our third eye. And he helps us navigate the starways of the Soma Sophia. Now, the Soma Sophia is the Greek goddess of the stars, and is in fact the true nature, the true before the fall. The Soma Sophia is Binah, and that derives from the Egyptian goddess Nuit originally, and which is eventually carried through to the Phoenicians with the Temple of Melkart, and also the Alexandrian tombs. You know, there you see the goddess, the goddess Soma Sophia in the sarcophagi, because in the Greco-Roman period in Egypt, they were very much into classical astrology and the ascension of the dead, following, the idea of going through Capricorn and ascending. Now, Dagon has shown us a mudra for opening our third eye, and he helps us navigate the starways in the Soma Sophia, so I read that. Now, when I say the mudra for opening the third eye, and this, of course, is described and detailed in our yoga book, which, if you're an associate member, it's available to associate members this year. The first and second volumes will be available outside of membership next year. But right now, if you want to get our Hermetic Yoga book, you have to sign up with our associate member program. So this is an incentive to do that. Now, the way we do this, when we go either in our internal yoga meditations or in our path working to Chesed, we go and visit the Temple of Poseidon in Atlantis, and in the center of the temple is a huge statue of Poseidon, and up in the head of Poseidon is a tank filled with water that Dagon, the last amphibian, alien amphibian, lives in this tank, and you can go up into the statue, and Dagon will come out of the tank, and he will help you open your third eye. The way this works is very simple, but in order to make it work, you have to first master our yoga system, which is very much like, and as far as the methodology is concerned, we use Tibetan tantric methods. and which we have a certain background in. Myself and some other OTA members went through the Sakya Order's Vajrayogini program, along with Avajra and several others, and so we use Tibetan methods, but we use the Western Psychic Center system. Now, as to conclude this, as you rise up through the palaces of the gods in your Psychic Center Hermetic Yoga meditations, you will receive advice and suggestions from the members of your personal pantheon. Because ancient gods were only too human in their characteristics and attitudes, these suggestions and advisements may be unwise. Dagon, whose perspective is more elevated and celestial than those in the lower centers, will act as the chairman of the board regarding the actions and directions the others may want you to take. In this sense, he's like your HGA, your Holy Guardian Angel, the one of the three guardian angels who stays with you through all of your incarnations. Heed him well. And what I mean by that is that, contrary to popular opinion, and contrary to the sacred magic of Hypermel and the Maj, there are traditionally three guardian angels. And you don't have to take my word for that. That comes straight from Cornelius Agrippa, and he got it from Hermes Trismegistus. So there are three guardian angels, all of which you should contact. And the first one is the guardian angel that you're born with, you're in your ascendant. The second one is the guardian angel of the planet the rulers your ascendant. And the third guardian angel is the most important one. He's the one who stays with you through all your various incarnations, and he is independent of the astrological aspects of the other two angels that you're born with. And so that's why he's important, so he can keep you out of trouble that you might get into if you follow the advice of the other two angels. And you might think of Dagon being in the same sense. Dagon up there at the top is sort of your governor. And as you go up these spheres and you meet the gods, either in pathworking and evocation or in your internal yoga meditations, they will give you advice, and they will ask favors of you, and they will advise you in areas that they are concerned with. And Kusor, the craftsman god down in Hod, down in his alchemy laboratory and his forge and all that, he is continually getting you to do projects and stimulating you to build your magical equipment and carry out your creative projects. And sometimes these creative projects may get in the way of your mundane life, and they might even become a kind of an escape. So you have to have a cool head to kind of keep the other gods under control. Now, the mandala of Chesed is a blue square turned up like a diamond, with the seed letter Kaf in the center in Phoenician, and the archangel is Zadkiel, and the musical note is F, and the jewel of the chakra, of course, is the sapphire. So those are all of the correspondences involved. One of the things about Chesed that Dion Fortune points out is that Chesed concentrates all of the holy powers of above the abyss, Chokmah, Binah, and Kether, and it concentrates those. And of course, they come through Da or Saturn. They come through, but they are Chesed is the first place where the directions are given. The first place where the king says, "This is what we're going to do," and then all the way down the other spheres become the workshops and the workshops and the laboratories for performing the desires of the king. And and one of the reasons why we attribute it to Atlantis is because Atlantis, in the Western tradition, Atlantis before it became too arrogant and before it eventually became decadent, which it, according to legend it did. Atlantis was the peak of ancient Western civilization, and so therefore Atlantis, with its ruling god Poseidon, is a fit attribute for Chesed. And as John Michael Greer points out, it is attributed to water. Chesed is a water sphere. If you're going to divide the spheres into the four elements, it's one that relates to water, and of course it also relates to prosperity. And here again, the planetary spirits of Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, certainly apply to Chesed. And we've discussed these Kameas before. And Yophiel, of course, is the spirit of Jupiter. And so if you want to do Jovian operations for prosperity, Yophiel is a good place to start. And you'll find the Kameas, of course, in the Golden Dawn. You'll also find them in the Magas. And you know how to. And the best way, we think, to make talismans is to use Mather's version of the Key of Solomon and use that spirit wheel version, put all your correspondences around the points of the wheel, and then put the Kamea for the planetary intelligence on the backside. Now, to review again, with Kameas, you have two entities. In each of the planetary Kameas, you have the spirit and you have the intelligence. And as you recall from previous broadcasts, the spirit is the aggressive and somewhat negative aspect of the planet, and the intelligence is the good, the prosperous, and the benign aspect of the planet. So in the case of Chesed, Yophiel is the one that is the intelligence that you want to use, and for prosperity and for various other aspects. Now, to discuss how we open the third eye, because I know everybody's curious about that. The way you open the third eye is you get up inside Poseidon, the statue of Poseidon, inside the head, and inside the head is this tank, and Dagon comes up out of the tank, and he's an amphibian, anthropomorphic amphibian creature, and with a third eye, and he you can either merge with Dagon, or he can help you. He can instruct you on how to do this, and what he will have you do is. You're standing, if you face outward toward where the third eye would be in the statue of Poseidon, if you face outward, there's a curtain drawn that's divided in the middle, and all you have to do is part that curtain. And as that curtain parts, and there's a mudra for doing this, it's very simple. And there's a mudra for doing this, and you part the curtain. And as you move your palms of your hands apart, the curtain will part, and you can look out on the astral plane and see your destination. Before you open the curtain, you must declare your destination. And then when the curtain opens, you will see it. Now, if you want to go ahead and project, then you lower your hands and you project, and automatically this will defenestrate you through the window of the third eye, and you will be on your way. And but I have to tell you, in order to do this, you must first master the Western version of Tantric Yoga. And as far as I know, we are the only people who can teach you that. And nobody else has attempted anything like this. As I said previously, Crowley certainly couldn't do it, and Julius Evola didn't attempt it, and Franz Barden didn't attempt it, and the reason why they didn't was because during their era, of all three of those magicians, who were very familiar, by the way, with yoga and even with Tantric Yoga, especially Julius Evola, the reason why they didn't attempt it was because Sir John Woodruff wrote this book called The Serpent Power back in 1910. And it showed the Laya Yoga. And I don't want to call it Hindu because the Hindus do not, the Brahmins don't admit to Laya Yoga. They don't. This is a separate thing from Orthodox Hinduism. But regardless of that, the Laya Yoga is the Indian version of the chakras, the psychic centers, and what have you. Now, unfortunately, Woodruff's book got attributed to the Tibetans, and the Tibetans, of course, are Buddhists, and even the Bunpos are Buddhists now. But the Tibetans are Buddhists, and they had this as far as we knew, not them, but as far as we were aware in the West, they were the ones who they followed this Laya Yoga that Woodruff had laid out. This is not true. The Tibetans have a different psychic center system for every deity they practice. It's a different one, and yet, as I say, Franz Barden and Evola and Crowley were not aware of this, and so we ended up with. Unfortunately, we ended up with a bollocksed up Western psychic center system, which Paul Foster Case promoted, and which unfortunately even the Society for the Inner Light is hooked up with, and this is very unfortunate because our Western psychic center system was developed during the Rosicrucian period. By Jacob Borm and Johann Gichtel, and it is not. It runs right straight down the lightning flash. It's like the Golden Dawn's middle pillar, except that it has all of the spheres of the Tree of Life that are on the lightning flash are on that middle pillar, and that is the correct system, and for the West, and Chesed is it's the governance, it's the governing area. That's why it's very appropriate to have the third eye there in Chesed, and this is when it should. By the way, in the path working to Chesed, which those of you who have our path working video, and here again, you don't get the path working video unless you're taking our course, and you have to be an associate member to take our course, and so actually, what I'm talking about tonight is kind of a recruiting, almost a sort of a recruiting session here, because I know that all of you are interested, or should be interested, in mastering these techniques. But in order to do this, you have to master the yoga system, because this is where the power comes from. And as Rigardi said, that if you don't practice the middle pillar, which was the only version of the Western system that we had for a long time, if you don't practice the middle pillar, you're not going to get anywhere in magic. And And Rigardi, by the way, in the end of his book on true healing, which was his book on the middle pillar, in the end of the book, he has all of the other spheres, and he lists them and their powers, but he doesn't go so far as to say where they are located, and yet he does list them. So we could attribute the survival of the middle pillar to Rigardi, but he didn't finish it up. He didn't finish up the Rosicrucian system as he probably should have. Now, let's read a little more about Chesed here from Dion Fortune, so that we get a little more of her wisdom in regard to this. Let's see here. As we come down the tree into these spheres, more within the range of our comprehension than the three supernals, we find the symbols associated with each sephira becoming more and more eloquent as they speak to our experience instead of causing us to reason by analogy. The magical image representing Chesed is a mighty throned and crowned king, throned because he is seated in stability in a kingdom at peace, not going forth in his chariot to war, as is suggested by the magical image of Geburah. The additional titles of Chesed, majesty, love, and love, bear out this concept of the benign king, the father of his people, and the situation of Chesed in the center of the pillar of mercy further bears out the idea of stability and ordered and merciful law, governing for the good of the governed. The title of the angelic host associated with Chesed, the Chasmalim, or the brilliant ones, enhances the idea of the royal splendor of Gedula, which is an alternative title frequently used for Chesed. The mundane chakra assigned to Chesed is Jupiter, the great benign planet of astrology, and confirms the whole chain of associations. Upon the microcosmic or subjective side, we find that the virtue assigned to this sphere of experience is that of obedience. It is only through the virtue of obedience that the subject can profit by the wise counsel of Chesed. We have to sacrifice. Remember I said that Dagon up there in Chesed is the chairman of the board. And everything the other gods and goddesses tell you, when you get up there to the top, Dagon will sort it out and he'll say, well, that's not a bad idea, but you really ought to concentrate more on something else. We have to sacrifice much of our independence and egoism in order to share in the amenities of organized social life. From this sacrifice and restriction, there is no escape. In this sphere, no more than in any other, is it possible to eat one's cake and have it too. There is no such thing as liberty if liberty is to be interpreted as unrestricted self-will. In other words, here again, Dion Fortune's taking issue with Crowley. Crowley had this philosophy: oh, if it feels good, do it. But then at the same time, he says, find your true will and do it. But if in order to find your true will, you have to exercise and do it. You have to exercise a lot of discipline, self-discipline. Now back to Dion Fortune. The force of gravity resists us, if nothing else. Liberty might be defined as the right to choose one's master. For a ruler, one must have in all organized corporate life, else there is chaos. It is effectual and inspiring leadership. That is the crying need of the world at the present time. And country after country is seeking and finding the ruler who approximates most closely to its national ideal. Once she was writing this, the Nazis were just getting started, so you know who they found. And it is falling in as one man behind him, which they did. It is the benign organization, it is the benign organizing, ordering Jupiter influence that is the only medicine for the world's sickness. As this comes to bear, the nations will recover their emotional poise and physical health. As I say, at the time she's writing this is when fascism was just getting going, both in Italy and in Germany. And so I'm not sure where her head was in this particular instance, or where her heart was, but Lord knows we need leadership in this country. We certainly do. Firstly, the vices assigned to Chesed, bigotry, hypocrisy, gluttony, and tyranny, are all social vices. Bigotry refuses to move with the times or see another point of view, both fatal vices in racial relationships. And that sounds familiar with today, too, doesn't it? Hypocrisy implies that we do not give ourselves wholeheartedly to the corporate life, but, like Athenaeus, keep back a part of the price. Gluttony exposes us to the temptation of taking more than our fair share of the common store. And it is but another name for selfishness. And tyranny is that wrong use of authority which arises where there are taints of cruelty and vanity in nature. I want to digress here for just a minute. I saw a documentary the other night on Warren Jeffs, the polygamist, who is in prison and running his cult from his prison. And apparently, he was great, preached to all of his flock that they should abstain and not drink, no alcohol and no coffee, no. And just lay down all these don'ts, these thou shalt nots to his flock, and then he himself went off and got drunk and gambled and did all the stuff that he told them was sinful, and it sounds to me very much like Muhammad Ahmed, the Mahdi, who. No sooner did he take Khartoum back in 1880, earlier in the 1880s, then he proceeded, and he had been saying, "Oh, we make war on the fat and the corrupt." And what was the first thing he did after he took Khartoum? He became fat and corrupt, and he was dead within about 2 years. It's. You might want to say, do as I say, do not as I do. But then on the other hand, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Back to Dion Fortune. The correspondence in the microcosm is given as the left arm, and which indicates a less dynamic mode of the functioning of power than that of the right hand, which grasps the sword in the magical image of the Mura. The left hand holds the orb, which signifies the earth itself, and shows that all is held secure in the firm grasp of the ruler. Chesed, in fact, denotes firmness rather than dynamic strength and energy. The mystical number of Chesed is said to be 4, and this is often represented by a 4-sided figure or a tetrahedron. A talisman of Jupiter is always set up on such a figure. Another symbol of Chesed is the solid figure as understood in geometry. And the reason for this is easily seen if one considers the geometrical figures assigned to the Sephirot, which have already been studied. And that's the Equiline cross, of course, and the 4-sided square. The point is assigned to Kether. The line to Hokmah the two-dimensional plane to Binah, and consequently the three-dimensional solid naturally falls to Chesed. Now, those of you who have seen the Magic of Solomon video, you notice that we had some animation in there showing this principle. And this principle is very important in evocational magic. Now, remember this. The point is assigned to Kether, the line to Hokmah, the two-dimensional plane to Binah, and consequently, the three-dimensional solid naturally to Chesed. Now, this, of course, Binah, this relates to the triangle manifestation. And remember, I said that Da'ath becomes Saturn, and the physical universe begins in Da'ath. And Saturn, that Da'ath becomes number 3. Now, number 3 then is the triangle, the flat plane, the two-dimensional plane, the flat plane. And in the center of that evocational triangle is a big green dot. All right, remember? Now, the big green dot in there, that big green dot represents the first solid. Whatever manifests in that triangle, that flat plane, is going to be a solid, because it arises from the flat plane, number 3, the flat triangle. And the very nature of the tetrahedron that we're talking about here pulls that solid back toward the center of the flat plane. And in other words, it can't extend too much further than an equilateral tetrahedron. It can't extend that much further. So this is why the triangle is referred to as sometimes as a demon trap, because it holds the spirit in the center of that triangle. Now, but more is signified in this connection than a mere random series of symbols. The solid essentially represents a manifestation as it is known to our three-dimensional consciousness. We cannot conceive of one or two-dimensional existence, save mathematically or symbolically. Chesed, as we have already noted, is the first of the manifested Sephirot. Therefore, how naturally does the symbol of the solid figure come into line with the rest of its symbolism? The solid figure used for the purpose of symbolizing Chesed is usually the pyramid, which is a four-sided figure consisting of 3 faces and a base, thus expressing the numerological quality of Chesed. There are many different aspects of the cross as a significant mystery symbol, besides the Calvary cross of the Christian mystery, and each of these crosses represents different modes of the functioning of spiritual power, just as do the different forms of the holy names of God. The form of the cross associated with Chesed is the equal-armed cross, which is symbolic of the 4 elements in equilibrium, and implies the ruling of nature by a synthesizing influence which brings all things into balanced harmony. The orb, the wand, the scepter, and the crook, all assigned to this Sephirah, express so perfectly the different aspects of the benign royal power of Chesed that they are in no need of elucidation. The 4 tarot cards that are placed on Chesed when the pack is set up for a divination carry out the ruling idea of the correspondence. The 4 of Wands symbolizes perfected work, which thus representing admirably the achievement of a king in peacetime as well as in his well-governed kingdom. The 4 of Cups is called the Lord of Pleasure, and is in keeping with the title of splendor assigned to Chesed, and with the brilliancy of its angelic host. The 4 of Swords indicates the rest from strife, and agrees perfectly with the significance of the seated ruler. The 4 of Pentacles is the Lord of earthly power, a symbolism so obvious that it needs no elucidation. The consideration of the Azuric text has been left to the last in this study in order that the sequence of the symbolism unfolding in each ordered relationship might not be broken in upon. Moreover, this text contains so much significance that it is best studied when we are as fully equipped as possible with the cognate symbolism. Much that relates to the teaching contained in this text, however, has already been studied as it came up for examination in relation to the preceding Sephiroth. I will not repeat this at length, but content myself with referring the student to those pages where the matters are dealt with in detail, thus avoiding needless repetition, which otherwise is bound to occur in the study of such a subject as the Tree of Life, where different symbols represent the same potency upon different levels of manifestation or under different aspects. The fourth path is called the cohesive intelligence, and how clearly can we see the meaning of these words when we have learnt to look upon Chesed through the symbol of the king seated upon his throne, organizing the resources and prosperity of his kingdom, and causing all things to be drawn together into the ordered whole for the common good. It is also called the receptive intelligence in the Azuric text, and this is borne out in the symbol of the left arm, which is assigned to this Sephira in the microcosm. Chesed contains all the holy powers, and from it emanate all the spiritual virtues with the most exalted essences. The teaching implicit in this statement has already been elucidated in the previous exegesis under the concept of archetypal ideas. They emanate from one another by virtue of the primordial emanation, the highest crown, Kether. These concepts have already been dealt with in relation to the second Sephira, Hokmah, where the overflowing of force from the sphere to sphere was considered. And next week, we will deal with that mysterious sphere, Da'ath, which is now in our restored Tree Before the Fall, is now attributed to Saturn and the beginning of the universe and the gateway to higher realms on the ascent. So next week, Da'ath and the god in Da'ath, of course, is Mot, and the two fallen angels. The Zohar wrapped up all of the Enochian, the 200 Enochian angels that came down with Semyaza. Moshe de Leon compacted them all into Azza and Azazel and chained them to opposite walls in the mountain of darkness. And they, of course, are two of the imprisoned inhabitants in Saturn, which we will visit next week, and we will discuss the symbolism of the fallen angels and the mystery of the fallen angels, and so you want to look forward. Be sure to be with us for that one. And meanwhile, remember, those of you that live here in Southern California, and if you don't have an invitation to the party, give me a call or email me, and remember the Dark Mother of all Halloween parties this Saturday night, and also the Moat Mass. What say you to honor the dead? So until then, happy Halloween and good magic.